Oh boy, is this a new series? A new series from someone who only starts series and never finishes them? Is it the same person who starts easy projects that just turn out to take progressively longer and longer? Is it a person who is increasingly filled with anxiety and regret as the days go on? Who is this man?
He is
Me. Since I have been spending so much time reworking the characters from my childhood adventures, I thought, how cool would it be if I also redid the map? And I had a whole plan where I was going to separate it into 5 or so different sections and make like a 4 or 5 part series on the map. Turns out life is not that simple, and I have instead been sitting here contemplating whether it's time to ask for a break because I spent almost 12 hours on this. And not only that, but I'm also really disappointed in it. But because life is not all about successes, I'm gonna share this journey with you anyways, and hopefully we can laugh and smile and enjoy this disaster piece anyways at the end of the day. As you can see, what I did was take a picture of a section of the original map and begin tracing out the coastline and sort of marking where various buildings would go. And you'll notice that I didn't exactly follow the coastline properly, and I will do the same thing with roads and the buildings and whatnot because I am sort of also reconfiguring the town to make it make sense. You see, there are some places where the joined pieces of papers have a coastline and some of them stop very abruptly. This is because, as I mentioned in previous videos, my sister and I were stealing a lot of my mom's printer paper, and she at some point decided enough was enough because this was like in 2010 and fully electronic documentation wasn't as common as it is now. So with all our little bits and pieces of map that we had, my sister and I joined our little islands together into our own respective Franken maps. And that is why all of the perspective and scale across the map is very wonky, and there are a lot of style inconsistencies in the different map sections because not only were different sections drawn at different art skill levels, a lot of the maps were not even intended to fit together as one big continent. And let me tell you, after all this time, my perspective and scale for map making has not improved at all. I don't draw a ton of maps, and I am also really bad at estimating distances and measurements of length. In fact, I'm pretty bad at estimating anything except for how much mysterious white powder I need to dispense a gram. And at YouTube, this is not a joke about illegal things. It's genuinely about years of chemistry classes and also really liking to cook recipes from around the world. Knowing that I'm bad at estimating, one of the first things that I should have done was get a grid to help me figure out distances and things. But did I? No. Did it have consequences? Yes. Very much so. I ended up drawing a lot of buildings very small, the roads feel massive, and then when I started at the top of the town, I had a lot more patience and the buildings are a lot smaller and more detailed, and then as I make my way down the city, things start getting bigger and more spaced out, and yeah, I'm actively regretting not having put in a grid and am considering going back in and sort of readjusting things on my own time. Also, in addition to regretting not having a grid to help me with the scale of the city, I also am kind of regretting my decision to draw the map from an exclusively aerial perspective. Not in this section of the map in particular, but in other sections there are a lot of castles and really cool geography features that I won't get to design the face of because now I have to draw it like a topographical map. Of course, technically the rest of the map isn't drawn yet, and I still have the option to do that with other sections, but I can't decide. I personally think it will look much cleaner if I do it all in the same perspective, but on the other hand, I feel like it will be much more true to the original designs if I do a mix of both aerial perspective and normal from the ground perspective. I actually don't know what to do. I'll probably decide at some point, but you can tell me what you think in the comments because I like listening to your advice in the comments. It's great. So the original plan was to get a nice clean copy of the entire map with the coastlines fixed and all the town names on it and print it out and have one big giant fantasy map to put on my wall someday entirely for fun. But considering how much I am currently disliking how it came out, I might try doing this again, but instead of drawing every little city and building, I might do it like my map of Vasseldal for my campaign book, where I draw city markers and maybe castles and significant landmarks. For example, for this town, I would absolutely draw a massive university for spellcasters. That way, I can draw the cool landmarks and features and have all the city names, but also not have to draw every single building. The second option I have is to print this one, but instead of leaving it in color, changing it to look like parchment paper. You'll see the colors come in later to the drawing, and I think it looks really harsh and unappealing, and I think the colors really contribute to how much I dislike how the map looks, and I wouldn't have uploaded the video with the colors, but I also didn't want this entire video to be me drawing a ton of little houses in red, and that's it, because I don't know, I just felt like that wasn't enough for a video. I think it's at this point where it starts to dawn on me just how much time drawing 8 pieces of paper worth of cities and landmarks would be, and also I get absolutely sick and tired of having to draw parking lots. I hate them. Next time I'm building my entire city around a massive parking garage. But anyways, I decide to work on only this one town, so only 4 pieces of paper as opposed to 8 like I thought I would do, because this is so much more than I thought. Since we're knee deep in this map, and by knee deep I mean I invested 11 hours of my life into this and I feel like I can't turn back now, even though that's 11 hours for 4 pieces of paper, and knowing full well that this map is 25 pieces of paper, which means that I will be spending nearly 69 hours on this entire thing just to have it bare minimum drawn in and colored without any rendering, and the idea of spending that much time on something I'm not even sure I love is stressing me out, but I'm here now, so let's talk about the city that I'm drawing. This is a city called Monfrelts. I did not come up with this name as a youth. This is the name I have in the present day lovingly bestowed on this city after mashing up some root words and translations of the word monster to come up with Monorelts, and then promptly misspelling the name I had come up with later on in the drawing to end up with Monfrelts, which I personally just like better. Also, this name conveniently allows me to name what was originally just spell school to the Monfrelts Institute of Thaumaturgy, or MIT for short. Ha ha ha. So hilarious. Anyways, this is a city that about half of the characters in my redraws playlist have come from, namely Wisteria, Krita, Cleopatra, Pisces, and Scaly. Victoria and Rick technically also, but they didn't get their own videos for various reasons. Monfrelts is a very technologically advanced city in contrast to the majority of this continent that I don't yet have a name for, but should probably come up with one. In a sort of above table sense, the way that my sisters and cousin played this quote unquote game with our maps was kind of like D&D, but without dice rolls and a lot less boss battling. But the point is that there were a lot of different locations on maps and puzzles to solve and people to talk to, conflicts to resolve, etc. And I am sort of imagining Monfrelts being to adventurers what Catherine from Genshin Impact is to the traveler. Ad Astra Abyssosque, where basically it's your starting town where you gather the equipment and knowledge that you need, and then they transport you to another location to fix some problems. While Monfrelts architecturally and visually does not differ strongly from our current world, it sports interesting technology that services the common adventurer as they make their way completing quests in various sections of the continent. Monfrelts has an intricate teleportation system that has been cautiously implemented around the continent, with great care that they do not startle regions that are A, not so familiar with the concepts of magic, and B, not so technologically advanced. Monfrelts is sort of the hub where an adventurer will start their journey. There are shops that have various weaponry and arcane focuses, and other magic items and advisors at their disposal. And it makes me think that a lot of the students that go to the Monfrelts Institute of Thaumaturgy are actually just adventurers being prepped for how to handle the varying regions on this continent. Anyways, not only do we have Cleopatra, who is probably a genius at fashion design through the various centuries to help supply the perfect outfit for the job, we also have Wisteria, who is an expert on all things biology and genetics. She probably is getting everyone the immunities that they need so that delicate biological ecosystems aren't upturned by the arrival of a strange adventurer. Although it's not like they're technically time traveling because they're literally just driving across the state, but whatever. Another really important piece of tech that is showcased on this map is the humanizer, which I can only assume is a machine that temporarily reconfigures the genetic makeup of the various monsters that live in Monfrelts, because pretty much everyone is a monster here, so that they can walk around freely without much conflict. Although in hindsight, considering that a lot of the other regions on this continent are based on historical sites, it is kind of funny to think that Mothman or whatever other cryptid or mythical sightings are just people from Monfrelts who forgot to humanize before teleporting, or were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And now comes the painstaking work of putting all the flats into the map. Kudos to D&D map cartographers, like, y'all are doing the Lord's work out here, because again, this took me many hours and I didn't even end up rendering it because I simply did not have time before the end of the week. Now, I genuinely think that this will look okay once I flatten all the layers and get to rendering. Yes, I'll work on only one layer. It's a disaster, we already know, but no one came to take away my art license, so here I still am making dumb decisions. I'm deeply sorry that you don't get to see a satisfying render in this video, but I was thinking maybe once I finally put my 69 hours in, I'll do one big render and work my way across the map. It's going to be a long recording and I still have a lot of hours to put in before I do that, but maybe after all that work is done, I'll be really happy with it and it will all have been worth it in the end. In all seriousness though, this has been an excellent exercise in learning how to format a town, figuring out sizes, and learning my personal limitations when it comes to map making. Because for my campaign book, or potentially books, I genuinely do want to be making my own battle maps and continent maps and town maps, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do this eventually. And I know you can buy a lot of really helpful assets or even make your own, but there is something heartwarming and nice about getting in there and drawing all the various details yourself. For example, certain houses have certain shapes or are located in a particular spot because of the person or people living in it. For Cleopatra's house, I gave her a pyramid-shaped greenhouse conservatory type thing off the side of her house. And for Wistaria's house, I put a lot of trees around the buildings she spends the most time in. All of these are little personal touches, and thinking about how buildings interact with each other and what sort of buildings are needed and which ones are not, these are actually things that I had a ton of fun drawing. And yeah, don't mistake me, even though I really do think that for the many hours of work I put in, this has turned out to be a little bit of a disaster and not a particularly exciting piece to show off in terms of YouTube video content, I did have a lot of fun working on it. I mean, if I wasn't enjoying it, I would have stopped well before I hit the 11-hour mark and would have uploaded something completely different today. Although, to say that I wasn't simultaneously preparing a backup plan and I didn't have a little bit of a downward spiral that my husband had to dig me out of would be a lie. Nonetheless, I really do love map making. I don't think I'm good at it. I do think I leave a lot to be desired as far as cartography goes, but hey, maybe I'll figure it out along the way. This is going to be a very interesting journey of me walking you through little bits of my childhood memories, different characters. You'll get to see the wacky things that I've decided to invest my attention into while I was growing up to be a totally normal, not strange at all adult, and you'll get to see me learn how to draw maps along the way. And I think it's going to be a pretty good time. Back to the drawing, where I actually kind of enjoyed choosing colors for the roofs and putting the smaller details in. Not all the characters have assigned houses yet. I'm not even sure that there are enough houses there. I'm going to have to double check that and possibly add a few houses in post to accommodate my many childhood OCs that I've created over the years. And then my 500 sub special is just going to be me drawing 500 houses in this map to accommodate the many new friends that we have gathered on this journey. I'm joking. Unless, I mean, if you want a house in here, just tell me in the comments. I'm just not sure I want to draw 500 houses. And besides, it kind of doesn't go along with the mushroom milestone theme I have going on. But we are on our way to 500 subscribers, which is super exciting, and I'm super grateful that so many people are supporting me. And I know I say it in so many videos, but being able to do this means everything to me, and the idea that I get to share this joy with so many people brings me and my inner child a lot of happiness. And honestly, even though it's a little under-rendered and a little disproportionate, I think childhood me would be pretty thrilled to know that I'm still excited about the map and still working on it, still adding to it. And even if I do end up liking this and printing this out, there is no way that I'm going to get rid of the original. Ideally, I get to have this digital one printed and then have frames made for the two drawings, and then I'm gonna get to hang them up side by side. I think that would be pretty cool. Not cheap, for sure, but pretty cool. Anyways, thank you all for joining me on this journey. It is going. The first video is out here, and even if this does terribly, you're all just going to have to be along for the ride, or just cross your fingers that this is just the ugly stage and that we'll get somewhere beautiful eventually. And please keep your fingers crossed, because this is going to take more than 69 hours to complete. But no, I am determined to finish it one way or another. It's going to happen eventually, and as long as I can space it out and manage the burnout, I can probably finish it in a reasonable amount of time, but who knows? Not me.